Hi guys, time for another wonderful Blender tutorial. Today we're going to make this model right here. This is a towel rack that is modeled from a real one that is in a guest bathroom at my home. And one thing that's going to be good about this tutorial is it's going to show you how to problem solve making such a shape. We're going to use some of the same techniques that we've used in previous videos that you guys as 3D artists will use throughout your careers to make some of the coolest things. It's very simple looking. However, in order to model this out properly, there's some planning strategy that needs to go into effect. So we're going to start out by kind of outlining the game plan on modeling this. So stay tuned. All right, so here's the game plan. I took a photo of the towel rack from the bathroom and gave it a little bit of perspective from the top view down, as you can see. And what we want to do is, before we start modeling this, I want to game plan this out. Like, what is my approach to modeling this? And this is, I'm just sharing my approach with you guys on how I typically do this. You may have a better method, and some of you watching this may have maybe even better at this than I am, but this is my approach for now. So one thing I'm noticing is that the rack is symmetric on either side, left and right. These sides are the same, and the thing that separates them clearly is this bar right here in the middle. So that tells me one thing that we're going to end up doing, and we're going to be adding in a mirror modifier to separate it. And there's no need of trying to model both sides of this. We get one side right, and then we just duplicate it, and then we know for sure that it's symmetric all the way across. So let's zoom in here for a little bit. So one thing I noticed, and I have modeled one of these already, so I kind of know the approach that works and the approach that gave me the worst headache. First I thought about building it from the base and then out, but this is fairly round. It's almost like a perfect ellipse, but it has a little bit of flatness to it. So I know a primitive that works for this. So what I did is I started modeling this, and then I worked my way backwards all the way to that base, right? And then I hit this side here and did the same thing. So that's the approach we're going to do. We're going to model this round piece here first, and then we're going to work our way back to the base that connects to the wall. And then we're going to model out this piece here to the side, all the way to the center of the pole. And then we can cut it, mirror it, and then that will get us to the finish line. So let's do it. All right, let's go ahead and start modeling. First thing I want to do is I want to come in here and I want to bring in my mesh primitive. In this case, I'm going to use a quad sphere. I'm going to go to edit mode, and I'm going to size it down. And the plan is to get it as close to the size of this round piece here as I can. It does not have to be absolutely perfect. I also want to go to the top view here and compare it. So I'm just kind of moving it in place like so. And I want to come to the back of it in back orthographic view, which we can see up here in statistics. And I want to go to face selection mode, zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. And I want to grab these four faces here, and I'm going to hit Command plus and just kind of scale it up a little bit. Going to go back to top view, and let's see, maybe do a Command minus on one of those, about like that, and bring it over here to where it looks about right. And what I want to do is I want to go back to the back orthographic view. I'm going to right click on that selection, loop tools, and then circle. That gives us a circular shape. Then I'm going to go back to the top. I'm going to go extrude on Y, and I'm bringing it out. And notice the flat part of my selection here from the viewpoint is where I'm going to go to the end of that reference photo before you get that bevel. And I'm going to stop it right there. And the first thing I want to do, now that looks pretty good, is I don't need these faces. So I'm going to go X, delete faces, and that gives us the first side here. While we're at it, go ahead and save my file. While we're at it, let me go back to the top view, and let's look at this side over here and see how far out we need to go. So I'm going to hit number 3 on the keypad. That brings me to the Right hand side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'll select 4 and I'm going to Command plus it up. Let's go down 1. Let's go back to top. And let's pull these out on the X by extruding. Oop, hold on, forgot to do something. Give me a second, I'm gonna go back 1. Let's go to Loop Tool, Circle. Now go back to the top, extrude on X. Bring these out to about the same point. X, delete faces. So now I've got my extrusions off this ball here. And from here, we can actually start modeling out the rest. So let's go ahead and hammer through this pretty quick. So I'm gonna go to vertex selection mode and turn on X-ray mode. So when I pick these verts here, it's gonna grab everything on both sides of it, top and bottom. So I'm gonna extrude this out to Y. I'm gonna come out about right here. I'm gonna scale this out. And keep in mind, my reference is a little off. Actually, before I get going too far here, let me get my reference. Grab this one here. Let's just kind of move it over just a little bit. I like that. And make sure X-ray is back on. Let's scale this back out. I like so. I'm gonna extrude. Sorry, I extruded on the wrong axis. Muscle memory was kicking in. So I'm so used to doing this on the Z axis. Okay, so scale out a little bit so I can see, or zoom out so I can see what I'm doing. I'm gonna come in about right here, scale it just a little bit. I'm gonna extrude again to about right here. Then we're gonna scale that out. I don't want a real hard scale from the previous version to this version, because it'll just be too drastic, and you'll be able to see it when we run sub D on it. So I just want to be a little bit more gradual with my scale. Now keep in mind with the reference photo here, this is like a weird perspective. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball this bevel here. Right here. Doesn't seem like the best plan, but trust me, it'll work. G and bring it in just a little bit. Just kind of try to match that top piece. So then this base piece right here is going to need to extrude out quite a bit. Then we're going to scale him out bigger, like so. And actually, I think I can come closer out on the y-axis, and then I'm going to extrude it again. Pretty much that's it. So we'll go back to object mode, and this is kind of what we have in term reference. Hide it so we can see what we've already built out. So far that's pretty good. And the cool thing is, if we need to adjust anything, we can easily do that. All right, so let's go back and let's go turn reference back on so I can see it. So I'm kind of done with this piece as far as just the primitive modeling. I'm going to go back to vertex selection mode, turn X-ray on, and I'm going to do something similar over here. So I'm going to go E on X. I'll bring that about right here. And I'm going to scale out my verts. And before I get started, let's do literally the same thing on this one. Let's move him up just a hair, just kind of get it centered. Okay, go back to my object. Let's go continue, because I had the previous selection still selected. Let's go E and X. Scale this down. And notice this bevel doesn't stick out quite as much as the first one. And one thing I want to do differently here is I want to taper this in just a little bit. Like so. And here's where I'm gonna bring that pole out. Okay, go back to the top view. And from here, I'm just gonna bring the pole out, zoom out a little bit, see how far we wanna go with this pole. This will really determine how long this towel rack is. I think that ought to be long enough. Right there. And because I have this selection, I can now move the 3D cursor to here. 3D cursor to selected, go back to object mode, and I want to change the origin of my model to the 3D cursor. Why? Because now that point is there. When I run this mirror modifier on it, you're gonna see what's gonna happen. Now I am using, before I do this, I'm using machine tools and hard ops and box cutter and all that whole suite to do this. So for me, it's very quick. I can hit Alt X and pick the axis I want to mirror it on, and see, for me, it's very quick. So that's usually how I do it. In this case, if you don't have those tools, all you have to do is go down here and go to the modifier stack and then look for mirror. It'll be under generate, and just make sure the x-axis is selected, and you want to make sure you have clipping turned on, so that way you don't have like weird overlapping geometry. And then, I mean, essentially we've modeled it, right? Keep in mind, we don't want to apply that mirror modifier yet because we still want to do some stuff here. And let's go back and let's come in here and like look at some topology cleanup. So I want to run some loops here. Let's run 2. Let's run 1 on this edge. And why am I doing this? I'm doing this to try to distribute my geometry a little bit better. So when we run subdivision, it's just going to be a little bit cleaner. And if you notice, I'm trying to make my faces here roughly equal sizes on the same sections here. Let's run 1 here. Don't want to put too many because, like I've said in other videos, you start getting tessellation, which is essentially you get like a weird pinching effect, and it just won't look good. Okay. And pretty much at this point I can disable the reference because it's just in the way. I'll run 1 here. I don't need 1 there. And let's tackle the pole here. Let's put some edge loops here. All right. And if you notice, where we modified this with the mirror modifier, the same changes we did on that one side have propagated on this side as well. So it's literally symmetric. And I'm looking at the stack here. The next thing I want to do is I want to run a solidify modifier on this because I want to give it some thickness and geometry. So let's go back to the stack here. Let's go to generate and go down to solidify. And if you notice, I want to change the stack order. I want solidify to come first, then I want the mirror modifier to come next. So let's go in here and start screwing around with how thick this is. I don't need a whole lot of thickness on it. And I'm gonna turn even thickness on so it gives it the same thickness everywhere. Actually, before I tell you about swapping solidify should come first. Okay. And because solidify is on here, it's inheriting the loop cuts we put in here. So if we were to take solidify and apply it, we would have to, and then we wanted to add more loop cuts, then we would have to come in here and do it on each side. But for now, we're good. Okay. Let's go in and do some bevel cleanup real quick. So let's go to edge select mode, and where we made these drastic changes, I want to go ahead and reinforce these bevels a little bit. So like right here, I'm gonna do 1. And what I want is, I want a hard edge right here. So we change the shape all the way to 1. And what that'll do is it will retain a harder edge. So let's just do this. Let's do all our hard edges first, and then we'll come in and do our softer edges next. You can almost see it taking effect when I'm doing this here. See how it pops into place there? Zoom in here because this is where we brought the geometry in a little bit. And you guys can barely see it, but I'm gonna grab these edges up in here like so. Do the same thing. See how it popped into place and cleaned it up a little bit. Okay, let's do this one here. This one here I think should be the last hard edge I want to do. Right there. Okay, so now we're going to do the softer edges. And I'm going to change this to 0.5 because I want rounder bevels here. And once we do this, we can kind of select them at the same time and bevel them all. Now subdiv will take care of most of this, but what I'm doing is I'm just kind of going in and just ahead of time and saying, okay, this is the type of bevel I want here. So that's why I'm just kind of specifying bevel shapes and have a little bit more control over how sub D is going to bevel this. Okay. All right, guys. Let's see what we got here. All right, so select the object. I'm gonna do a Control-2, level 2 sub D modifier. I'm gonna right-click Shade Smooth, and now, my friends, we have a modeled and a very clean geo towel rack. You have yet again done a great job and successfully modeled this. You guys are getting good. That's your video. Have a good day.